Welcome back to ManaTutor MTG Draft. I watched all the early access event drafts so that you don't have to, and today we're going to go over what I noticed from the archetypes, which ones worked, which ones did not, and then we'll go over how to get into your first draft of Bloomburrow, because the typal archetypes in Bloomburrow make it especially important to do a certain strategy when you conduct your draft. And to do that, we'll be reviewing the draft of an early access event streamer, Nitsahone, and reviewing where he could have pivoted his strategy to get into the more open deck. But first, let's review which archetypes worked and which ones did not, and I've ordered this in power rankings from the most powerful archetype all the way down to the least powerful. First up, we have Black-Green Squirrels. I think this is the most powerful deck in the format. It's a mid-range deck that can beat aggro or control, and you should really focus on getting the forage payoffs and removal. The next most powerful archetype I see is White-Green. You do need the pump, but it looks really easy to go wide with Intrepid Rabbit and Head of the Homestead. Next up, I have Red-Black. I haven't seen this in the early access drafts, but I do think that this one is still powerful, and I would recommend trying to go into this one to get some exposure to it if you can. Up next, I have White-Red. We did mention in our last episode that this archetype is one that'll probably perform well weeks 1 and 2, and kind of trail off after that. I still believe that will be the case, but when this is open, this is definitely an archetype you would want to explore. I will say in this archetype you can run out of steam, so I recommend prioritizing cards in the late game that help you play more cards, like Alania's Pathmaker. Next up I have Red-Green Stompy. Nothing much to say here, put the most powerful big cards into your deck. I will say Wandertail Mentor is a beating. This card, you get it down, it ramps you into turn 4, you expend 4, it becomes a 3/3 that turn. Great card to get in this archetype. Up next, I have Blue-Black, which I still haven't seen the true version of. I saw some light rat synergies and things like that, but I'm still waiting to see a Blue-Black solid control deck that's not splashing anything else, but I think it'll still be a pretty powerful deck. Up next, I have Blue-White. There's not really much to say here either. Play your best non-flyers early and then flyers, but this deck looks okay. Now we're getting to the decks I don't think work so well. Blue-Green, it can do the thing. I've seen it hold its own, but it seems more cute than it is effective. I would probably stay away from this weeks 1 and 2 until the stats on 17 lands really point out how to play this deck best. I'm more impressed with it than I thought I would be, but it still seems cute and less effective. White-Black I'm putting second to last on the list. I haven't seen it perform well. I will say I have yet to see a true control version of this deck where it's really about using a ton of Sonar Strikes and other removal early and then outvaluing your opponent later in the game. The Bat thing hasn't really held up a ton, but I do think there's some potential here to lean even more controlling than I've seen this attempt to be played at in early access and probably have a better win rate. That said, I'm speculating here, so I'm putting it lower in our list. And then lastly, we have Blue-Red Otters. While a fun archetype, it's not one that's very consistent, and I haven't seen it work in any of the early access drafts that I've seen. Now let's look at the early access draft that Nitsahone had, where we can learn how to navigate our first Bloomburrow draft successfully. The key is, in pack 1, pre-wheel, you want to pick the most powerful card, but if that's not obvious, try to get into one color deeply first. But the key thing is looking at what colors are being passed your way. If you notice that your color is getting cut from your seat, feel free to abandon to a different color. Then as you near the wheel in pack 1, notice if any particular archetype-specific cards are being passed your way, and be open to switching into those colors. Then in pack 2, if the most powerful card isn't in your base colors, move into the colors of an archetype you noted as open in pack 1. Now let's give his draft a play, and I'll comment along the way.
We are doing some more Bloomburrow during the early access. Thank you for the invite, Wizards. Probably take Thoughtstalker Warlock here. The floor is a 3-mana 2/2 menace that makes your opponent discard a card, and the ceiling is you damage your opponent, so you get to choose what they discard, which is quite good. I think it's better than the Pathmaker, which I think is a nice common for red. Balin can be good, but you have to end up in those 3 colors, and you have to end up with a bunch of tokens, and fixing's not that great in this set for to get this into play as early as you want to. So yeah, I think it's Thoughtstalker Warlock for sure. Lots of other solid cards here, but
I completely agree with Nitsahone here. Thoughtstalker Warlock is a very powerful card in the best color of the set, in my opinion. It's a great early start to a draft.
Do we take another one? I mean, 2-for-1s are just so good and limited these days, and I talked about it a little in an earlier draft where part of the reason removal is less good than it used to be is because there's so many creatures like this that are just a 2-for-1 up front, and then killing it would take out the trash feels awful. And I think we do just take another one. I mean, this might be Black's best uncommon. It's definitely in the conversation, and starting a draft with 2 feels pretty good. As much as I like Take Out the Trash, I like the Warlock more. If this always rummaged, like in any deck, maybe I'd take it in the same spot, but it doesn't, so it doesn't matter.
If 1 Warlock was good, 2 is even better. Love this pick.
Yeah, maybe we'll do Lizards. Okay, so here's the card I was talking about that I misread in the set review. It can only fight creature tokens, not anything, not any creature. It's still good, and I'm still thinking about taking it here. A 5 mana 5/4 that puts a counter somewhere or naturalizes something is a good card, but it's also a Dour Port Mage, which has a pretty powerful effect. These 2 do have ETB abilities, and bouncing them, drawing a card, and then replaying them is pretty insane. It's also a Banishing Light, which is good, but I think Wolverine and Port Mage, certainly the Port Mage is probably better. It takes some building around for sure, but not that much, because it comes with an effect that lets you bounce your stuff. So, Banishing Light is like the safe pick. We know that card's great. Less sure about the Port Mage, but I'm pretty sure it's really good. So, I think it's what I'll take.
Yeah, the Port Mage is the most powerful card. It's a good start to blue-black control. I'm never locking in here on that, but I would take the Port Mage as well. So far, we're on the same path.
Blue-black is rats if we end up actually in blue-black. Okay. So Eddie Merc Crab is interesting. It's definitely pretty good in blue-black and good in blue-red. This is a great common, one of the better ones in the set. I think we probably take the crab. These 3 red cards are all like pretty good or solid at least. The Talon's probably the best of the 3 of them, but I think the crab is definitely better. And if we're blue-black threshold, like the crab's going to be good. It is worse if we don't end up, like if we end up playing black-red or something, obviously I'm going to be a little disappointed, but I think the crab is pretty good, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I would agree with the crab pick. It's the most powerful card there. The Bonebind Orator I also saw as another side card that was a potential, but it's not as good as Eddie Merc Crab, and we're so far heading down a good blue-black control path.
Take it. It's not quite as good as Tolarian Terror, which is funny because that was a common, but yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. So this can help with Threshold and loading the graveyard, but it's still Mind Rot, so I'm not super high on it. This is really only going to work out if you do lizard things. Probably just take the Warden. It's a 3 mana 3/2 that has flying a bunch of the time. Certainly not exciting, but I think it's on like the same level as the Brawl or any of these other cards, and we already have other blue cards, so.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton that was exciting there, but I do think the Reptilian Recruiter is just so much more powerful and goes well with Warlocks. It's true you haven't seen black flow smoothly, which is good to note to lean away from black, but it's too early to commit to not being red.
Okay, so this makes me consider jumping into blue-red and seeing what happens. It's a little sad we started with 2 Warlocks, but black's not super open. Like, I could take the Cutthroat, but it's not like it's that great. And this is a nice spell payoff that goes well with like what we're doing with some of our other cards. Shore Up isn't bad. I do like the Guard Mouse a lot. It's probably, these 2 are both really good of these Signpost commons. Certainly better than the Cutthroat. The Duo's honestly not bad either. There's lots of quality commons in this pack. It's a question of which one do I want to take. I think we take the...
Alright, so there were no straight black cards. You're probably getting cut there. But notice the Head of Homestead, Warren Elder, and Baker's Bane duo still in there. Going to stay open to pivoting into green or white. If I'm green, I prefer to go green-black, but no black is likely being cut. So green-white, green-red. I don't prefer to do green-blue. If I'm white, I prefer to be white-green or white-red. I'm considering completely pivoting to 2 new colors at this point. I'm taking Head of Homestead as open to all those archetypes.
The duo. Okay. So this really makes me want to play black-red a little bit more, which is a little awkward given how things have gone. But it can also work in blue-red. It's not bad in blue-red, so it's probably what I'm going to take. It's a little 2-drop with some upside.
So notice that Feather of Flight, Thistledown Players, and Might of the Meek are all white-red cards. Almost the entire group passed on these cards. If you are fed white-red the rest of the draft, you're golden. Notice no blue cards. Blue is probably getting cut and is already shallow to begin with. You don't want to fight over blue. I'm 100% pivoting to white-red-green with an emphasis on white-red. You can make the case for any of Feather the Flight, Flame Cash Gecko, Thistledown Players, or Mighty the Meek. I think I'd pick the Gecko as well, but most of the value of this pack comes from the info of what was available and not, rather than from which card you pick.
So it's probably what I'm going to take. It's a little 2-drop with some upside. Okay, interesting. So we've still got a Guard Mouse. We've still got a Heartfire Hero. So blue-red is not that good at targeting at stuff. It's not terrible at it, but it's not like we have that many repeatable ways of targeting things. So it makes the hero a little less appealing, and the Guard Mouse. Same with black-red. Like, we're not that likely to pull it off, so maybe I'm just supposed to take the solid removal. Yeah.
Okay, red cards went around and 2 of them are white-red specific. While Agate Assault leaves us the most open, we have strong enough signals that white-red is open that I think we should take the most generically powerful card, which here is Heartfire Hero.
I think we will. Okay. So Shore Up is quite good if we're going to be a blue-red deck. So I think it's what we take here.
With Mabel's Medal and Bramble Guard Captain both here on the wheel, I'm realizing white-red is definitely open, and I'm taking Bramble Guard Captain here.
So, yeah. Some fixing or a decent 2-drop.
You still see more white and red cards. It's not a bad idea to take fixing when you don't have a good card for your deck, but it's too early to commit to blue-red, which is what Nitzahone is clearly doing here. I would be taking the Worn Elder.
Kind of feels like the fixing's a little bit better. Yeah, I think...
Here, I would also take the Uncharted Haven to smooth the mana. Frilled Spark Shooter's okay, but I'd rather leave myself open for being able to splash if I wanted to for some bomb down the road.
I think I'll take some more fixing. Okay, so this is interesting to still be here. But I think this is probably better for us.
You can tell that Nitzahone knows that he should be pivoting on over, but just wants to stay the lane. This should be a Blacksmith's Talent. It's very clear white-red is open.
Probably better for us.
And you even get a free Rabbit's Response at the end.
If we were red-white, that equipment thing I think is better than people think it is. Oh, man, you're going to give me a Salvation Swan and a Driftgloom Coyote? Oh, I might have given Driftgloom Coyote a B+. I was talking about B+ uncommons. At least gave it a B. This pack really makes me wish I'd gone red-white, which we could still do. Like, there's no... we're not locked in on anything, and Salvation Swan is excellent. The red cards in this pack are not very good. Like, this is fine, but... And this is okay if we're, like, red-white straight up. The Embers is, kind of a build-around. I probably am supposed to take the Swan here.
You know white is open, and you have really good cards to pick in white. This is definitely the moment to pivot if you have not already into white. Now, I would not take Salvation Swan. Driftgloom Coyote is essentially a mythic uncommon, and I would be taking that over the Swan. I think it's a more powerful card.
This is an okay black card. Better than okay, really, but I think the Swan is a lot stronger, so... We can even splash it, so, with the Grotto and the Haven, so... Yeah. Okay, so Trap Trainer is intriguing. So is Harnesser of the Storms, in terms of spell payoffs. Might just be better than Trap Trainer. They're both pretty good. There's another duo here, but there's a decent chance it wheels. Yeah, let's take the...
There's not much for you here. Yes, there's a lot of blue, but you're only on pick 2. That's not a signal of any sort, and you know you weren't getting blue earlier. So I'm taking Essence Channeler here. It's between Essence Channeler, Whisker Quilt Scribe, or Uncharted Haven. It's not bad to take fixing when there's no good picks. That said, white-red doesn't really want to splash a ton, and I'm taking Essence Channeler as a 2-drop with the most potential upside.
A Harnesser that I think kind of does lock us in on being... It's a little sad to take those lizard guys first, but I think we'll probably be blue-red, splash white for Salvation Swan. It's hard to say on play boosters, especially because this set is like completely different than every other play booster set we've had so far, because it doesn't have a bonus sheet. It just has special guests, which are not the same thing. So this pack's interesting. So Storm Splitter is kind of cool. If you have a bunch of cheap spells, you can make like a bunch of copies. But the ceiling is still like sending 8/1/4 hastes at your opponent, which not that great. Like, it's kind of a silly card in limited. The Boar is like a amazing beater. This is a spell payoff, but not a great one. This can give you a 2-for-1. I mean, I think you probably just take the Boar here.
Yeah, I think this is a clear Quake Tusk Boar.
I mean, it doesn't do synergy things, but it's just like, it's just such a good rate for what it is that I have a hard time wanting to pass it. Lily Pad Village. Not bad. I don't think we're a War Squeak deck. We're not going to be very good at Heartfire Hero. Sort of thinking about the Village. I don't think Gossip's Talent is especially good. The Shucker's okay. We're not going to be much of a graveyard deck, but it's a 2-drop that in the late game does stuff.
With our path of draft, Heartfire Hero, we would be good at triggering, so I would take Heartfire Hero here.
So I guess I'll take it. Ooh, this is so good. Now I really wish I'd been red-white. Yeah, so there is a hamster. Earlier we were talking about whether or not there's a hamster in the set, and I was like, I think there's one, but maybe it's in the commander deck. This card's pretty cool. Makes all your gift cards want you to give gifts to your opponent like every time you cast them. Sugarcoat's pretty good. It's probably what I take here.
Whiskervale Forerunner is a great pick for us in our version of the draft here. There is a signal that if we ended up in green, we would have been alright with Galewind Moose, but I do think with the existing picks we made, it's now too late to go into green. The signal wasn't as strong as with red-white, and we have an arguably better white card to pick anyways, so Whiskervale Forerunner it is.
Here. That Whiskervale Forerunner is good, but if you can't, you need to have it in the right deck, which is not what we are, I don't think. White's crazy open. Yeah. I think that was the right path, was white, which is kind of sad. Because Driftgloom Coyote and Intrepid Rabbit are both, like, first pickable cards that are still in this pack. And I do think it's too late now for us to shift. We'll just take a Charger here.
Driftgloom Coyote at pick 6, that's what happens when you find the open lane early, and I disagree, it's not too late to shift when it's this open.
We'll just take a Charger here. Okay. I think I like Bellowing Crier better than the Village or the Rallier.
I take Raccoon Rallier here. Dewdrop Cure is nice to pick up a copy of, but not as necessary as 1 to 3 drop creatures that can repeatedly target creatures. With the way this draft has gone, you'll likely get a Dewdrop Cure later on anyway.
We have enough fixing at this point that I don't really want to spend more picks on it. I would probably spend a pick on a Bell, I guess. This isn't a terrible... Oh no, that's not the one that has fixing, just kidding. I could play with this, I guess, but I just can't imagine it's good. Like, I'm sure enough that it's not good that I don't see a reason to. So
here, I'd take the Brave King Duo with our version of the draft.
Maybe I'll be wrong, but we'll see. We did end up with a bunch of random lizards. Okay, some prowess is nice.
Here, I'm taking Mousetrapper. Notice your picks keep coming because you found the open archetype.
It does seem like white was probably the best path. Okay, I like both of these. I think Into the Floodmaw is probably better for us.
Here I'm taking a Whisker Quill Scribe.
Like, we have a few cards that trigger on ETB and stuff, but not enough to... Yeah, I think we go Pathmaker.
Here I agree with Pathmaker.
We do need more instants and sorceries, that's for sure.
And here I'm also taking the 3-tree mascot, Interior 2-drops, and it's a fixing pick as well. Some credit to Waxlane Witness as a flyer to finish, but not particularly what we're looking for, where we can shore up our early plays.
There's some random fixing.
And that's it for packs 1 and 2. We won't go over pack 3, but I do want you to know that we did get hooked up with a pick 6 Swords to Plowshares, a pick 8 Mabel's Medal, and a pick 12 Dewdrops Cure, so we did pick up one late, despite skipping on around 3 other copies. That's all for today. I hope that gave you a good idea of how to shift gears into a different archetype from what you started off in a draft, and I think that will be particularly important for Bloomburrow draft, where you really benefit from finding the open archetype and get all the cards that support your strategy as you go. Enjoy your drafts with Bloomburrow coming to Arena tomorrow, and see you after your drafts.